Another day, another story. The story's name is Greed, Murder, and Truth. Human beings are capable of achieving incredible feats through their intelligence, creativity, and ingenuity. Despite our flaws and imperfections, humans possess an immense capacity for empathy and compassion toward others. Our ability to innovate and adapt to changing circumstances has allowed us to thrive and survive throughout history. Human beings have made tremendous progress in fields such as science, medicine, and technology, improving the quality of life for many. We possess the unique ability to imagine and dream of a better future and work towards making it a reality. Humans have a remarkable capacity for resilience and perseverance, overcoming challenges and obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Our capacity for self-awareness and introspection allows us to reflect on our actions, learn from our mistakes, and strive for personal growth. Human beings have created beautiful works of art, literature, and music that touch the hearts and souls of others. The diversity of human cultures and beliefs reflects our ability to adapt and thrive in different environments. Ultimately, the greatness of human beings lies in our capacity to love, connect with others, and make a positive difference in the world. But one greed destroys everything. Once upon a time, there was Detective Johnson had seen his fair share of crimes during his years on the force, but the murder of Mr. Richards was unlike any he had encountered before. Richards, a wealthy businessman, had been found dead in his sprawling mansion in the countryside. There were no signs of forced entry, no witnesses, and no apparent motive for the killing. As Johnson and his partner, Detective Lee, arrived at the scene, they were greeted by the victim's distraught wife, Mrs. Richards. She was inconsolable, crying and shaking uncontrollably. She insisted that her husband had no enemies and that she had no idea who could have done this. The detectives began their investigation by interviewing the staff who worked at the Richards estate. The butler, the maid, and the gardener all had alibis for the night of the murder, and none of them seemed to have any motive for killing their employer. As they searched the house, the detectives noticed that Richard's office had been ransacked. Papers and files were strewn about, and the desk drawers had been pulled out and emptied. It appeared that someone had been searching for something. They found a clue when they discovered a locked drawer in the desk. Johnson and Lee worked to pick the lock and inside found a letter. It was from Richard's business partner, Mr. Thompson, and it revealed that Richards had been embezzling money from the company. With this new information, the detectives questioned Mr. Thompson, who initially denied knowing anything about the embezzlement. But under further interrogation, he broke down and admitted that he had confronted Richards about the missing funds and had threatened to go to the police. As Johnson and Lee investigated the murder of Mr. Richards, they encountered some conflicting evidence that made the case more challenging to solve. One piece of evidence that initially seemed to point to a suspect was a set of footprints found near the crime scene. The footprints matched the shoes worn by Richard's business partner, Mr. Thompson. However, when they interviewed Thompson, he denied being at the mansion that night and provided an alibi that checked out. Another conflicting piece of evidence was a DNA sample found on the murder weapon. The DNA belonged to a man who had a criminal record for assault and a history of violence. However, when they tracked down the man and questioned him, he had an airtight alibi and could prove that he was nowhere near the mansion on the night of the murder. These conflicting pieces of evidence made it difficult for Johnson and Lee to piece together what had happened. It wasn't until they discovered the letter in Richard's desk, revealing his embezzlement, that they had a breakthrough in the case. From there, they were able to connect the dots and ultimately solve the murder. Realizing he would lose everything, Richards had attacked Thompson in a fit of rage. Thompson had managed to escape but feared for his life and had hired a hitman to take out Richards before he could be caught. The hitman was eventually caught and confessed to the murder, which brought closure to the case. But Johnson couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness at the realization that greed had led to such a senseless tragedy. Mr. Richards was a wealthy businessman who owned several successful companies. He had made a fortune through his business ventures and was known in his community for his wealth and status. He lived in a large mansion in the countryside with his wife and a small staff that helped maintain the property. Despite his success and wealth, Richards had a darker side. As the investigation later revealed, he had been embezzling money from his business partner, Mr. Thompson. The embezzlement had gone on for some time, and Richards had managed to cover it up until Thompson discovered the missing funds and confronted him about it. It was this discovery that ultimately led to Richards' death. In a fit of rage, he attacked Thompson, but Thompson managed to escape. Fearing for his life, Thompson hired a hitman to take out Richards before he could be caught. Unfortunately, Richards' greed and deception had caught up with him, leading to his untimely death. His wife, who was devastated by his murder, did not know about his embezzlement and was left to deal with the fallout from the investigation. Johnson told the media, "The killer had developed a grand scheme and plan to kill, which is briefly as follows. The killer's strategy in the murder of Mr. Richards was to make it appear as though there was no apparent motive or suspect in the crime, to avoid detection and capture. The killer had entered the mansion undetected and had taken care not to leave any obvious evidence behind. They had used a weapon that was difficult to trace and had not left any fingerprints or other identifying marks on it. The killer had also taken steps to throw off suspicion by creating conflicting evidence, such as the footprints that matched Mr. Thompson's shoes and the DNA sample from the man with a criminal record. By making these false leads, the killer had hoped to throw off the investigation and delay the discovery of their true identity. Overall, the killer's strategy was to make the murder appear random and motiveless, to avoid suspicion and capture. However, their plan ultimately failed when the detectives were able to uncover the motive and the identity of the killer through their investigation. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more stories.